Welcome back to...
When is it going to end, Robbie?
This season is going to kill me. Before Tuesday, Arsenal were unbeaten in 13 games. We're second in the league, third in the UCL. Currently, we're in both cup competitions, but the mood music doesn't reflect that at all. And frankly, that's fair enough. It's been such a bizarre season. Our difficulty in putting together a string of wins, our injuries, Liverpool's form, our transfer business, and much, much more seems to have left a strange taste in collective mouths. It feels like we spent a lot more time chasing games this season too, which also adds to the frustration. For a team that are top of the defensive charts, in 30 games so far this year, the other team have scored first 9 times, and we've turned around only 3 of those games. Against Newcastle, Arsenal's expected goals tally of 3.1 was the highest recorded in a match without scoring among Premier League teams in all competitions since Man City against Southampton in July 2020. If you want to get frustrated by a team right now, watch us. And unfortunately, I wasn't shocked by the fans leaving the stadium on Tuesday night. It's a late kickoff, a poor showing in a cup semi-final, sure, but I think it was actually the manner of the defeat that massively dictated it. Fulham, Everton, Brighton, Newcastle, almost every time we lose or draw this year, it feels like we do so because of basically the same issue. And it is so annoying. There's different flavours to each game, of course. Just against Newcastle, 6 big chances missed, according to SofaScore, is unforgivable. And in that game specifically, creating opportunities wasn't the problem per se, but ultimately we're seeing themes here across a wider sample. A lot of domination, a lot of touches in the final third, all the field tilt, all those metrics that I'm sure annoy absolutely nobody when they're brought up after a loss, but not putting the ball in the bleeding net. It's all right having problems, every team does. But when it's the same problem playing out over and over and over again, I understand the disconnect, even when contextually, one loss isn't that bad. I've said before, I think there's kind of 2 headline issues with Arsenal on the field. Misprofiling, mainly on the left, which leads to balance issues and so on, and our transitional quality. And I want to get more specific now. I want to talk about a specific tactical flaw in our transitional quality that is massively holding us back. And also a more ideological flaw, which maybe underpins the whole thing. If Mikel can't fix these issues, this season and beyond is going to be a big struggle. It isn't just going to be solved overnight by the market. It's very easy to look at Alexander Isak and wonder what part of your body you'd chop off first for him. And while profiles would fix a lot of this, of course, a good deal of it is coaching. I've said before, Mikel almost always fixes things eventually. He just often does it too late. And begrudgingly, there's a team above us, both geographically and in the Premier League table, that we can look at for inspiration. It's not about becoming Liverpool because it's always a balance. It's about seeing why they're succeeding and seeing how we could implement some of what they're getting right without upsetting our own game model. So let's get to it. First, the tactical issue. Arsenal's response to high turnovers, filed under the headline Transition Problems. This is a graph from Data Analytics EPL on X, who did this bespoke for me when I asked, so thanks and please do check him out, measuring how well teams in the Premier League turn high turnovers, i.e. the ball changing possession favourably in dangerous positions high up, into shots. We know Arsenal are brilliant in the press and counter-press, so it's no surprise to see a second only to Man City in terms of volume of high turnovers. But then you see that we're 14th in the league for converting high turnovers into actual shots, and you wonder why. City had the highest volume of turnovers, but the highest conversion into shots from that, and you wouldn't call them a transition team, would you? So why are we such an outlier? I think it's because Arsenal simply don't focus on and capitalise enough on this aspect of their game model. We'll come to the profile issues, but at some point you have to look at instruction. We don't react fast enough or in an efficient enough way. Often, when we win the ball high, we slow it down, we clog the spaces, and we want to come ball to feet rather than stretching the play. We prefer to reset to the patterns we practice, I'm sure, every day in training. And it kills me. Let's see it in action. Havertz does a great job winning the ball back high from Willock, and the ball drops into Trossard. Just have the placement of the Arsenal players around him in your mind here, and watch what happens between this screenshot and the next one 2 seconds later. Trossard wins it, facing play, with 4 Arsenal players around him in Ødegaard, Rice, Havertz and Timber, with Martinelli far side. Next slide, please. And they've literally not moved. No one makes that run to affect the last line. Trossard goes down a blind alley, gets crowded out, goal kick Newcastle. If Kai makes that run there, what does that do to the space in front of Newcastle's back line? If Martinelli makes that run far post, and Trossard knows he's going to do that, Can he whip in a ball to the back stick? Just going back to a previous slide, look how he wastes that moment when Newcastle aren't set. Rice is calling for it, but why isn't he making that run on the underlap now rather than wanting it to feet? A few moments later, Arsenal again, brilliant work, one of the best teams in the world at smothering you. Livramento in a corner is forced into a hospital pass, and again, Trossard's there to win it off Joelinton. Brilliant. 5v4 here in their penalty box. But again, no one responds with a run or movement. What could a Martinelli run across the box here do? What could Ødegaard stretching that space there do? Partey moving wider to create the angle for the shot? Why don't we react? Against Brighton, ball given away in a gift of an error to Jorginho. And again, look at the movement. Everyone, bar Jesus, drops deeper to Jorginho to receive. Every single player. No run from Trossard, no run from Nwaneri, nothing from Marino, even with Brighton showing their ankles a bit with that space in behind to attack. They all want it ball to feet. Now, it's unfair to say this happens every time. Sometimes we do respond, and it's just poor execution. Earlier moment here against Brighton where we get an absolute gift. Jesus just messes up his touch and Marino misses a simple pass. But I can live with that a bit more because at least we react quickly and the players move. But on balance, these types of moments are few and far between. Are we tired? Maybe. Against settled play, of course, constant movement around and running would upset the patterns and tire us out. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the unsettled moments where teams give the ball away or we win it off them high. We can't blame fatigue for that. It must be instruction. Another moment here in a win, so you don't think I'm just cherry picking off a loss. Brentford break, again, brilliant work to win it back, but no reaction. Look at Brentford's defence. There's someone there to play a runner onside with ease, but everyone wants it to feet. This is, certainly in part, a profile issue. Our balance of ball-to-feet players who prefer to drop to receive off the midfield, like Havertz, Jesus, Trossard, Nwaneri, Sterling, Marino, Ødegaard, probably Saka too, versus runners, arguably just Martinelli and perhaps Rice from deep, is off. Lewis Skelly makes one pass over the top off one run from Rice, affecting the last line. And look, 3 Arsenal players it could drop to in acres of space created off one move. When I talk about transitional quality, I don't just mean counter-attacks like Leicester 2016. Of course, that's part of it. That's how Liverpool score so many of theirs, back to front very quickly. And that is also a scenario I don't think our squad is suitable for outside of maybe Martinelli. I don't think Ødegaard's suited to that sort of game, Havertz, Trossard, even Saka really. But you're always going to have strengths and weaknesses as a team. So that doesn't really bother me. I mean, how many times are we breaking quickly from the edge of our box? Not that many. So as much as I'd love to see a profile come in to help us solve those scenarios when they come up, these high turnover scenarios are actually the much bigger issue because we so rarely capitalise on them. Liverpool are much better on that graph for conversion and they're brilliant in these situations. They're usually winning it deeper in general, so they don't rank as high on the high turnovers, but look how they react when they do win it. This is what the data doesn't show you. They just run more. Here against United, winning by the way, and in the snow and wind, but still running, Gakpo wins the ball back and Gravenberch has it. Look at everyone's reactions. The body shapes. Trent on his bike. Salah out of shot on his bike. Nunez, Gakpo, off. United are unsettled and there for the taking. Crucially, they all carry on their runs too. If that's Arsenal, no way is there anyone on that last line. Liverpool have probably too many there for my taste, but look at the space it creates in front. This one doesn't end in a goal, but you see the intent. This one, though, does. Joelinton loses it in a dangerous zone, and you see the reaction, the running, and the space it creates. Every Liverpool player, to a man, creates a sense of urgency and panic and pushes Newcastle back. They don't want to drop and reset and get it into feet. They lean into the chaos. 4 players in the box, all pushing, ball in, goal from Salah. Here, Leicester lose it, this time very high. Again, look at the reactions, the body shape of the players. They're running, affecting the line and causing chaos, which creates the space where Jones scores from. How often is that space there, unprotected for us? Newcastle put about 13 men there. There's a video of every goal that Liverpool scored in 2024 on their YouTube channel. I wouldn't watch it if I were you. Arsenal are brilliant at creating the turnovers and concede very few, as you can see from this graph from Data Analytics EPL. So if we can actually fix this part of our game model, think how many situations we could exploit. Are Liverpool perfect? You know my answer. Do I want Arsenal to become some mad, high-tempo transition team that tries to score the moment the ball gets turned over by the corner flag, getting it forward the quickest way possible? You know my answer. But you don't have to put a bid in on the neighbour's house to politely go around, knock on the door, and ask what brand of fertiliser makes their lawn look so good. Secondly, This is more ideological, and this isn't entirely my point. This was inspired by Rohan, my boy on the Cannon podcast. Is Mikel too mathematical in his view of football? And when we look at Liverpool and Arne Slot and Jurgen Klopp and so on, is there room to be a bit less so? I don't know if you remember this interview from the summer that Mikel gave to ESPN. He said that statistically, Arsenal should have won the league last year over Man City. He wasn't making excuses. I'm not saying he's wrong either. I'm just bringing it up because it's symbolic of a wider sense I get of him as a manager. In reviewing last season and considering how Arsenal get over the line, data is obviously a massive aspect of Mikel's thinking. Whenever Mikel does a press conference, he's always got a stat. He knows the XG of a chance off by heart. He knows how many box touches we had. He knows what minute things happened. In his post-match to Newcastle, he knew the exact amount of shots. He knew exactly the date of the next game. He's very accurate. He speaks about the game in actions, periods, margins. Those are the words that Mikel loves. I rarely see him surprised by a journalist even saying something like, "Did you know it's Saka's 150th game?" or whatever it might be. If you think about how quickly the broadcasters get these guys out post-game, it must be pretty high on the post-match priority list to have a look at the numbers. And my suspicion is that Mikel looks at football like this. If I get my model to produce the best possible numbers, then I'm doing my job and I will win. If I produce the highest XG difference possible, the most amount of final third entries, the most box touches and so on, yes, margins will go this way and that in the course of a season, that's football, but the results will come because it's probability, it's maths. He has also had success with this method, so I don't hate it as an idea. If you send 1,000 job applications versus 10, 1,000 is probably more likely to get you a better outcome. Basically, put yourself in the right position, eventually luck goes your way. So will he look at that Newcastle game as just another game where, pretty much, the margins didn't go for us, and that happens sometimes, but long term, don't worry, because we had a higher XG and XA, more open play shots, more expected threat, more deep touches, more zone 14 touches, more progressive passes, higher field tilt, possession. Like, from a game model perspective, he would be justified in saying, on another day, we win that match. Numbers are a better argument than, we need more belief. At least they're measurable. And with that mindset, I've been thinking, what would push him to tell the Cronkies we need to sign hundreds of millions of pounds worth of attacking talent when the numbers look the way they do? How could he justify killing himself for an Isak-level outlay when we scored our record Premier League goals tally 2 years in a row? Seriously, put yourself in his shoes. How would he pitch to get £100 million worth of someone's money, 200 million with wages, when all the underlying numbers look fine? We're just talking Mikel here, and I think it's unfair to lay all of the transfers at his feet. As has been revealed many times, he's just part of a complicated sign-off system. Yes, he's a big part, but he's not the only one. But you follow my logic. He might logically go, well, I think we'll be okay with the guys we have data-wise, so I'm not going to push my boss to do something massive and make a big mistake. Ideologically, Mikel seems very calculated. But to win major honours, does he need to step away from the calculator? Can you imagine Mikel doing anything other than basically trying to dominate every metric and every outcome? I can't. He literally says we want to be the kings of everything. But sometimes you can't be. Liverpool, under actually both Klopp and Slot, weren't and aren't kings of everything. They give up transitions. They're leaving themselves exposed. Their defenders are looking after insane spaces. One of their defenders can't even defend, and I'll let you decide who I'm talking about. But it produces these games. They win 6-3 with huge feeling. And that feeling matters. It puts fear into teams, and they defend you differently. When I watch them, it feels like they're not measured in touches and carries and entries, but in freedom and feeling and moments. When you're watching the stale robotic football we have at times, could it not be a bit more imperfect? Can we win by being the kings of everything, or do we have to specialise a little bit? I do think Mikel's reaching the end of his tether in terms of the attacking signings and output, because there was an interesting press conference moment where he sort of implies we don't have the best forwards, talking about Isak, saying that's what you have when you have real quality up front. If you look at our shot conversion numbers and other attacking metrics, maybe that will construct enough of an argument for him to move. But generally, I want to feel like a team less run through a spreadsheet. I'm more like a team aware of the spreadsheet, but willing to rip it up when needs be. I don't think you should take shot conversion percentage numbers to convince the club to do what we know they need to do. Again, this isn't all on Mikel. It's a complicated system, and it looks like he's starting to apply the pressure as well. At the top of football right now, it's a battle between order and chaos. But we don't need to be binary. Just learn a little bit from those succeeding around us and see where it takes us. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.